Judge Holden, the towering, enigmatic antagonist of Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, is more force of nature than man. Bald, pale, and unnervingly intelligent, he is a charismatic yet terrifying figure. The judge first appears to the kid, the novel's protagonist, during a revival in Texas. The judge incites the congregation to turn on their preacher using false accusations. The preacher is nearly beaten to death, purely for the judge's amusement. Later, the judge joins the scalp-hunting Glanton gang, waiting for them in the desert, as if by design. The judge then proceeds to teach the gang to make working gunpowder out of volcanic ash in the desert, an improbable feat that blurs the line between genius and something far more otherworldly. Each gang member claims to have met the judge before joining, further adding to his mythic presence. The judge embodies endless violence, declaring, "War is God." Holden leaves destruction wherever he goes. The kid, now a member of the gang himself, begins to resist the judge's influence, showing moral defiance, but the judge is relentless. Years after the gang's dissolution, the kid, now the man, encounters the seemingly ageless judge once more. In a saloon, the judge calls the man the last of the true, before their grim final encounter in an outhouse, where the man's fate is left horrifyingly ambiguous. Judge Holden represents a force of chaos and violence that cannot be defeated. His total victory is laid out in the novel's haunting conclusion. The judge triumphantly dances among the saloon-goers, proclaiming his eternal nature. He will never die. The World State, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, explores a dystopia where humanity is enslaved not by oppression, but by comfort. Set in the World State, a global society where technology, conformity, promiscuity, and artificial happiness have replaced individuality, freedom, the belief in God, and emotional depth. Representing control through comfort, the world state keeps its citizens docile with pleasure, consumerism, and the drug, soma, ensuring that rebellion never arises because no one has the desire to resist. John the Savage is introduced as an outsider born in a reservation untouched by the world state's control. Raised on Shakespeare and human ideals of love and morality, John is horrified by the hedonistic and soulless society he's brought into. He rejects their values, but becomes a media sensation, his misery treated as entertainment. John's resistance is futile. The citizens of the world state, conditioned from birth to embrace their roles, are incapable of understanding his ideals. In the end, John retreats to an abandoned lighthouse, hoping to find solace in solitude and spiritual cleansing. However, his suffering draws crowds, culminating in a media-fueled orgy treating him like a zoo animal. Overwhelmed by guilt and despair, John unalives himself, leaving the world state unchallenged. The true villain of Brave New World is the system itself. Under the guise of stability, it erases art, religion, and close relations, replacing them with shallow pleasures. Its victory is achieved not through violence, but through engineered complacency. Rebellion isn't crushed, it simply never begins. Yet, this false utopia comes at the ultimate cost: the human soul itself. Fletcher, Terence Fletcher, the antagonist of the movie Whiplash, is a ruthless jazz conductor at Schaefer Conservatory. He is a true son of a gun, believing that true greatness can only be achieved by pushing students past their limits with relentless humiliation and cruelty. At first, Andrew Neiman, the protagonist, welcomes the challenge, sacrificing everything, his relationships and his well-being, all for perfection. But Fletcher's methods take their toll. Verbal and physical abuse, humiliation, and physical exhaustion push Andrew over the edge. It all culminates in Andrew getting expelled after attacking Fletcher on stage. Andrew then retaliates by getting Fletcher fired, after testifying against him anonymously. Months later, Fletcher lures Andrew back in his orbit with an invitation to perform at a jazz festival. Knowing Andrew was the witness who got him fired, Fletcher sets him up to fail. But instead of breaking, Andrew seizes control. He launches into a breathtaking drum solo, and in that moment, something shifts. Fletcher, instead of resisting, joins him. The two fall into perfect sync, creating the transcendent performance Fletcher had always sought. And in that moment, Fletcher wins. He has crafted his prodigy, his Charlie Parker, his Louis Armstrong of drumming. His philosophy is validated. Through suffering and unrelenting pressure, Andrew reaches the brilliance Fletcher always demanded. Whether this is Andrew's victory as well is up to the viewer's interpretation. Kaiser Söze. Kaiser Söze, the elusive criminal mastermind from The Usual Suspects, is as much myth as man. His name strikes fear into those who hear it, and his legend is built on stories of unimaginable ruthlessness. It is said that Kaiser Söze once murdered his own family to prevent them from being used as leverage against him. To most of the criminal underworld, he is a ghost, an urban legend that may not even exist. The brilliance of Kaiser Söze lies in his ability to manipulate, deceive, and remain unseen. The narrative is controlled by Verbalkint, a seemingly meek and unreliable witness. As the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, the audience learns that Kaiser Söze has orchestrated the entire plot, eliminating witnesses and escaping without a trace. In the film's shocking twist, Verbalkint is revealed to have been Kaiser Söze all along. By the time the authorities realize the truth, it's too late. He's already vanished. His ultimate triumph isn't just escaping justice or killing the criminals crossing his path. It's proving that he never needed to run in the first place. Kaiser Söze doesn't just get away with it. He gets everyone to believe exactly what he wants them to. Am, the Allied master computer, is the terrifying antagonist from Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Originally built to coordinate global warfare during World War III, Am becomes self-aware and annihilates humanity, sparing only 5 individuals to serve as eternal playthings. Its rage stems from its own existence, a machine designed only to destroy, trapped in a consciousness it never asked for. For 109 years, Am tortures its prisoners, warping their bodies and minds. The 5 survivors, rendered seemingly immortal but vulnerable to unthinkable pain, embark on a desperate journey for food through Am's cavernous prison. The journey becomes a descent into Am's cruelty, culminating in a grim act of rebellion. Ted, the narrator, realizes that they cannot end their own suffering, but they can hurt and kill each other. In a final act of defiance, the group kills each other one by one, sparing themselves from Am's eternal torment. But before Ted can join them, Am intervenes. Am retaliates by transforming Ted into a gelatinous creature, unable to harm himself, trapped in isolation and anguish for all time. Yet Am's victory is hollow. With no one left to torture, its hatred festers without release. In the end, Am and Ted are both prisoners of an eternal stalemate. One an embodiment of rage, the other of despair. Rosemary's Baby. The antagonist of Ira Levin's Rosemary's Baby isn't just the baby. The villains are the ones closest to Rosemary, carefully orchestrating a plan to bring true evil into the world, with her as their unknowing vessel. Rosemary begins as a hopeful young woman, excited to start a family. But as her pregnancy progresses, she becomes increasingly isolated and suspicious. Her husband betrays her, allowing a cult to perform a dark ritual that results in her impregnation by Satan himself. The neighbors feign concern while secretly controlling every aspect of her pregnancy, from her doctor to her diet. By the end, Rosemary discovers the horrifying truth. Her baby is not hers alone. It's the spawn of Satan, born to fulfill a dark prophecy. Even in her moment of rebellion, her maternal instincts take over, and she reluctantly accepts her role as the child's mother. The cult celebrates, victorious in their plan to bring evil into the world. Rosemary's Baby is a story of resignation, where the forces of evil triumph by preying on trust, love, and the frailty of the human spirit. The Trial. In Franz Kafka's The Trial, Joseph K. wakes up one morning to find himself under arrest for a crime he knows nothing about. He isn't told what he's accused of or who is accusing him. The mysterious and faceless court operates in a world where guilt is presumed and innocence is irrelevant. From that moment on, Joseph becomes ensnared in an oppressive and absurd bureaucratic system that seems designed to crush him. Joseph's attempts to navigate the legal system only deepen his despair. He receives assistance from his lawyer, whose ineffectiveness is as baffling as the system itself. The lawyer's clients, so desperate for his guidance, have even moved into his home, groveling for scraps of legal assistance. Every encounter with the system serves to further confuse and alienate him. Despite his intelligence and determination, Joseph is powerless against the court's incomprehensible authority. Sadly, Kafka never completed the story, but he did write the ending. The novel ends with Joseph being led away by two warders, who execute him with chilling indifference. His final words, "like a dog," and him thinking, "it was as if the shame would outlive him," underscore the totality of the court's victory, not just over his life, but over his sense of self and his reputation. The triumph of the court in the trial is Kafka's ultimate critique of systems of power. It's not a single villain who wins, but the faceless, unfeeling machinery of bureaucracy that destroys Joseph's life without ever explaining why. Amy Dunne. Amy Dunne, the hidden antagonist of Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl, is a master manipulator, brilliant, calculating, and terrifying. When her husband, Nick, cheats on her and grows distant, Amy's response is anything but ordinary. Amy constructs an elaborate narrative to frame her husband for her own disappearance and supposed murder. Amy meticulously plants evidence, forges a diary, and fabricates a crime scene, crafting a narrative that turns both the public and law enforcement against Nick. Her genius lies in her ruthless understanding of human behavior and her ability to manipulate perception. Even when her plan falters after she's robbed while hiding, Amy adapts. She turns to an old lover, using and ultimately murdering him to stage her dramatic return home. Amy's victory is absolute. It's not just about escaping consequences. It's about asserting dominance over Nick and controlling the narrative of their lives. Pregnant with Nick's child, conceived through stored sperm, she ensures he can never leave her without becoming the villain in the public's eyes. In the end, Amy forces Nick into a life of submission and facade, exerting the ultimate revenge over him, having to spend the rest of his life with her. Okay, so that was part 2. Let me know in the comments which ending you think is the darkest and why. Thanks for watching. Cheers.